Hey, this is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com. It's Monday, December the 17th. This will be our chart lesson for today. And before we get started today, I just want to say, starting this week, I'm not sure when I will probably call it end of the year and take off the last couple of weeks of the year or so. But just like today, I didn't come in until about 9 o'clock today. Um, and I'll probably wander in like that and then wander out early as well. So, if you don't hear from me, if you drop me an email or something, don't hear from me. It's either because I'm busy trading or I haven't gotten in yet or just hadn't got around to getting to it yet. So, um, but just want to make you aware of that my hours are going to be kind of odd as we get into the end of the year, and then I'm probably going to take a week or two off at the end of the year. But I'll let you know before I'm gone for good. But in the meantime, I'm liable to be sporadic as far as my trading and so forth. And just want to make you aware of that. But anyway, nice trading day today, a nice little channel here. And there were a couple of different ways to look at this. If you drew your trend line off the first couple of swings here, um, you could have had this as your trend line and your break and then a couple legs up and then your extended correction and then a new trend that started up. But I believe the trend, I do believe that was a minor trend line for sure. It was kind of a wedge looking pattern there almost. But I believe that the main pattern was this channel right here. And you can see that work until we overshot it and then we had a break of the trend line and then off to a new high. And this was a really good move once we got going back inside the channel here. You had to re-enter this several different times here before you finally caught the big move. But every one of these were good scalps. So just depending on how you traded it. But let's back out and talk about the trades. And one thing you had to notice at the beginning of the day was there was a gap. There was an overnight gap and prices traded down. So this is not necessarily a downtrend. This is just a two-legged correction that filled the gap. And you should be able to see there's two legs there. There's one leg and then there's another leg right there. And it's pretty much almost a perfect measured move. I think it's one extra tick there maybe. But basically we've been trending up since this double bottom right here and from Friday. But this was really just a two-legged pullback to fill a gap, and then we headed on up again. And we weren't sure. Here's your overnight high and here's your overnight low, so you don't know that you're not going to have possibly end up in a trading range today. So you had to consider those facts as well. And but that's why I'm always drawing these lines. And this trend line here was very hard to find. And the way I found it was these two swings were already in place when I came in. And what I did was I drew my trend line off those two swings. And I just, oops. I drew it across there and then I just drug it down like so. And it ended up fitting perfect. It fit perfect off these couple of swings. And so that's where I was looking for prices to possibly bounce when we came back to it. So so that was what alerted you to that trade right there. And you can see that fits really well. Prices turning down every time it touched that line. And we finally got a little overshoot here. And then we had a correction. We broke the trend line. And then we made a new high. And that's pretty standard stuff. And if you get to trying to look all in here, and really the best entries are the ones you get down here off the, that come off these trend lines, particularly with the trend. So that's going to be this entry, this entry, this entry, and these three entries right here, because this is your first break. And but even notice here, you had a short-term trend line coming here. You had your break. You had a move down to a new low, and then it took off again. And that's why I'm always drawing these short-term trend lines as well. And, they don't always work out as clear and as this one did, but when it does, you got to pay attention to it. So just like right here, you could have drawn a trend line right here, and you had a break, and then you tried to pull back twice and test it, and you couldn't, and prices took off, but that was your signal to go long right there. So, even draw your short-term trend lines, because just like this one, you may not have had this in place yet. And you might have been looking at that right there as your trend line and a possible trading range. And if that's the case, then the only thing that alerted you really to this trend line or to this trade right here was this trap or the trend line or the combination of both of them. And as you see here, you got your trend line off your first couple of swings here. You got this pullback. You got a double bottom that formed right at the trend line. You got that one tick lower than that bar right there. And then look at that big reversal bar. You go long right there off that short trap. And it was off to the races to the high side. And you probably wanted to exit right here. If you'd have ridden this out to the pullback here, you still could have ridden this on up, but smart traders would have exited right here. And this was the first trade I was able to take because I didn't get in here till close to 9 o'clock and got my charts going. But what I did was, by the time I got here, by the time I got my chart set up, we already had these 3 swings right here. And if you just draw your line off that, that's what I did. And then I copied it and I drug it down here. And you can see that might even fit well down here because it does tend to, show you where the main reversal occurred at. But I wasn't the only one that was looking at this line, obviously, because look how this bounced right here as well. So it might have actually been off that very low right there. And then you still got your trend line break. You got back in the trend line, tested it, and took off again. So obviously more people saw this line, and then some more probably saw this line right here as well. And but even if you had it here like I did, this was the first break. And so you're looking for, a chance to get long when you get a setup, and there it was. You kind of had this double bottom, a failed break lower. And that's really this same line coming across here like so. And by that time, your highs were up here, and you can see that. Then you got your failed break above that. Then you got your little double bottom, your failed break lower, and we went higher. So these lines move around as the day goes on. This is where I had it early this morning. Actually, I had it right here. Nice long here. Any runners were safe. You probably I would have thought about exiting here, especially when this turned down, because you don't know that this doesn't turn into a range day. So don't let it take all your money back. Just exit and wait for another entry. And that came right here across those lows. You can see that, and we got that reversal bar. So you really got to consider when you got these 3 little overlap, and this, you really got this. You can see it right here. You kind of got that double bottom across there, and it's just a perfect double bottom. It's right there at a possible trend line. It might have been the first break of this minor trend line. So another reason to be looking for, a bounce back to this side. And so I like this long right here. And no runners this time. You would have gotten scalped out and it pulled back and would have taken them out. But then notice you get another chance to enter here. And by this time your line would have been way up here, because there's your last closes. You might have had it drawn right across there like so. But either way, let me show you this. You got first entry short, second entry short, it fails, it turns up. So you got a failed second entry short in an uptrend with all, everything's back above the EMA. Nice chance to get long. You got just enough room to scalp out before you get to these highs, and it goes on through, makes a new high, and then turns down. And you might have thought about getting short there, but if you saw this channel, then there's no reason to be getting short yet, because we haven't got to the highs yet. And generally, you'll reach the highs and then have one more push at it or so, and overshoot it like so before you get a real good short setup. And so if you saw this long, this is a breakout pullback long is what this is. It's not a great setup, but if you saw it, it was worth taking, because I know some traders took it. And, this is, this bar, if it would have just closed on the uptick instead of the downtick, this would have been a nice little bearish reversal type bar. You got a little double bottom, a 1-tick break, and then close on your high. You got a chance to get long, but plenty of, well before you get to the high, so there's enough room there to scalp out really, but this went on up and went higher. And again, any runners, you could have ridden this all the way, to this failed breakout up here and then exited or gotten short or whatever. So um, another nice long, another nice long. And then I don't recommend these shorts, but this one meets our criteria, and I probably should have put it in green. I took it though, so I just went ahead and marked it red. But notice you got a double top right here where this prices have been turning down all day long, and then you broke higher and failed. And so you gotta be thinking that, hey, now we've got a double overshoot. You got this trading range kind of area here where we fell out the bottom, then out the top. And so you got to be thinking we're at least coming back to the EMA, but probably going to come back to the other side of the trend channel. And that's exactly what happened. And there's a short right here. This is a breakout pullback short, and this is one leg. Show you this here. There's leg one, and then there's leg two, a perfect measured move. And then look what happens. Prices reverse. You got a nice bar, reversal bar to go long. That's your signal bar. You go long right there. And there was just enough room to scalp out. And then guess what? It turns down again. And so that's why we scalp out and always look, try to go to break even on our runners. I really thought I'd catch a runner there, but we didn't. And then it comes down here, and guess what? Then you get this double bottom across here. And this is the breakout area. We're just retesting it. And it goes a little bit lower, and it reverses. And that's a failed break lower. So you got to consider, and this is, your trend's up. This is the first real trend line break. And if you're paying attention, you may be thinking, hey, we may not have even, that might even be really the trend line way down here. I think it fits better up here, but needless to say, it's your first break of the trend line, so you're still looking for longs. And with those, with this being the breakout area and the pullback and the test, you got to figure that's where they're going to trap everybody out. And that's exactly what they did. They trap all the shorts in, trap the longs out, and then they reverse it. And it takes a while to work its way up, and it's good for a scalp, nothing more. And then it pulls back and takes out the runner. So, but then you get another chance, a second entry long right here. And again, you're looking for a retest, so you're looking for nice bullish bars to consider going long above. And again, this time, your runners are safe this time. And you could have ridden this one. Actually, I don't know. I can't remember if they were or not. Let me double check that. You're in at 1950. No, you didn't get any runners there, but they were safe this time, I know. And so again, all you get's a scalp, and then it comes back and it takes out your break even. But notice that we're still, and this is a breakout pullback long, and you get a chance to go long above that bullish bar right there. Your highs are way up here, so there's plenty of room. This is a breakout pullback long from these highs. And you got to be expecting that we're going to test these highs, and look at it. It just trades all the way up into the close. And any runners would have been safe on that one. You could have ridden this out all the way to the close. So you got to learn to figure out how to find these lines. And I got a couple of emails. Couple of them did really good today. So obviously you were seeing things, and I got a couple others where people said they were struggling, but they were looking at this as a trading range. But even if you see this as a trading range, which I saw as a possibility as well, you got a short right there that you can't ignore, and you can't let it take all your profits back. So, that's an easy trade. There's no reason there's no reason to enter in here. Notice there's no setups in here. Here's the first, where you finally get a failed break higher, and you get a fairly bearish bar. And even if you didn't want to enter there, you could have entered here, and you still had plenty of room. If you saw this trend line here, then you might have been scared of this trade. But if you saw this trend line, then you shouldn't have been thinking short at all, and you should have been looking for a long, and that would have got you long right here. So, because that would have been the first break of that trend line. So it really just depends on, you've got to remember the rules, and you can't get tricked. And that's what they do. They'll lull you to death with it trending every day like this, and then all of a sudden, you'll start getting range days and you'll get burned buying up here near these highs. And then you'll say, I'm not ever buying the highs again. And then the next day, it starts going higher at all these highs because it's an uptrend. So you got to recognize the type of day and where the trend lines are and where the support and resistance lines are and move them around and keep checking them. And if you do that, it's generally fairly straightforward. I mean, I think anybody could take my chart right here, just get some of this out of the way. I've got it a little complicated, but you take all that off, and I think it's fairly obvious that that's a channel right there. And if you see my lines, I think you know exactly where you should have entered and where you should have looked to exit and so forth. And it's pretty straightforward, but the key is learning how to find these lines. And it takes experience, but people that have been trading for, months on end should be able to find this stuff by now. If you're not, then you really need to go back to the basics and just consider trying to find the trend and trying to find the proper support and resistance, and just start from scratch there and quit worrying about, really the key is to just take the trades during the day that you think you're seeing and then go back and learn from them at the end of the day. Don't question them, because what people will tell me is, I saw that, but I was just scared to take it. And it's scary to go long right there. Look at that big move down. But if you realize that's where the trend line is, and you could see that after the fact, you realize that's the place you want to be entering. And then again, right here, it was scary going long there, but it would have worked. And it was even scarier going long here because now, you got one big, huge leg down, which is really two legs and a correction. So, could you be going to make a measured leg down? You could. But, you got to know what the rules tell you, and you got to trust them and just take them. And, hey, so what if you enter here and you're wrong and it turns down, then you exit right there and you say, hey, I was wrong. I was too early. And we'll try to look for another setup. And but you see what happens every time it comes back to this line. There's an entry. There's an entry. And there's three more right there. And because they're playing off this trend. And you see what happened at the upside. There's a short. You would have got burned there, but it never really set up for a good bearish bar. There's a short with a good bearish bar. Again, you never really got a good setup here until right here. And then, look, it takes off. So they're there. First of all, you got to learn to recognize where you need to be entering. And then secondly, you got to wait on the right setup. You can't just enter because you're there, because sometimes it'll do just like it did here or here. And notice this setup is really just this pattern is just a bigger pattern of this one. And that's all that is. You got a bunch of overlap here near the high, and then you break higher and fail and turn down. Same thing here, except you broke lower first, turned up, broke out this high side of this overlap, and then turned down. And those are almost perfect repeat patterns. And that tells you something too. Once you see a pattern that works once during the day, it generally is going to work every time you see it later that day. And so just watch for those. But anyway, I'm going to wrap it up and call it a day. I hope you had a good trading day. If you didn't, you just got to continue to work on it and take it day by day, step by step, and hang in there. And the most important thing is make sure you study your trades and your charts at the end of every day and learn from them. That's the only way to learn, is to do it and just get experience, and then go back and review your chart, review your trades, and figure out what you did wrong and try to correct it, figure out what you did right and try to do more of it. And that's exactly how I did it. It took a while. It takes a long time. You don't do it overnight. And but anything worth doing takes effort and a lot of experience and practice. And trading is no different. So hang in there. Hope you had a good day. If not, work on having a better one tomorrow. I'll see you then. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com.